Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast with Dan Casper.
All right, he is in studio right now, Mr. Mr. Jake Bolks.
Sneaked in when I wasn't watching.
He snuck by you. I know you had that door.
Did he get through all the electronic TSA with all the stuff he carries?
I was just worried if he got through by all the fans that were blowing. You know, that might have been a little bit more nerve-wracking there. So, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Yourself?
Not bad, man. Not bad.
I actually stared at you for a minute there, Bob, trying to get your attention.
Oh, I didn't see you. Where was I? Well, I'm
probably right there, but
you're staring at your main man here.
Oh, I see.
Got to work on those observation skills.
Yeah,
I know it.
That's probably why you missed your putts.
That's why I don't see my bucks in the woods.
Yeah,
observation skills.
Yeah, they're looking right at you. You just don't see them.
Man.
Oh, well, turkey season's going on right now, right? Youth last weekend?
Youth last weekend.
Perfect weekend, too.
Yeah,
I mean, weather-wise.
Yeah, lots of turkeys out and about, too.
Yeah. Did I see, I think, probably more of the biologist. I thought I saw a news article, too, that DNR expecting a good season for turkey season this year?
Yeah, it sounds like, I don't know the numbers on it, but it sounds like, obviously, with that mild winter and everything, it's... numbers should be good for birds, deer, everything. Hopefully this year, the elk mortality, all that kind of stuff. So,
how do you prepare your wild turkey? How do you guys make your wild? I had a guy at the sale barn. I was talking to him from over in central Wisconsin on the air the other day, and we were talking. He's a big turkey hunter and big hunter in general. I said, "How do you make those turkeys?" He says, "Well, I soak them in butter, and then I wrap them in bacon, and then I cook it."
Sounds delicious.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
I've only had one, so I brined it and all that and put it in the smoker. So,
yeah,
but,
I'm big into slow cooking the legs and thighs, and then make like a barbecued pulled turkey.
Ooh.
And then the breast. Every
too.
year I do something different. Whether I always save one breast for Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
just you sit down and you got your own harvested bird on Thanksgiving, but usually just grill it or do whatever. I did make like some turkey jerky one year, and that was really good.
I've heard some people don't like wild turkey.
I've heard a lot of people say that.
A lot of people think it's dry, and it can be dry. There's no doubt if you just cook the heck out of it.
Right,
it gets real dry and whatnot. But
a lot of people dip in these oil things, oil cookers.
Oh yeah, fires and all that too.
I've never had anything out of one of those things.
No, because you got to do that pretty slow.
I think so.
Dunk it in there, but.
First, a lot of. Yesterday was the first day of the first season, and my phone was already blown up with pictures. People getting them this and that, both personal and work phone. But I saw plenty of youth pictures from the weekend. So it looks like the weather cooperated, and then even in the rain yesterday, there was plenty of people harvesting. And I was picking my kids up for daycare, and I saw a couple fanned out in the field, and I'm like, they're ready.
Yeah, definitely.
Hey, what happens, Jake? And I know deer. You talked about the fact that deer alongside the road call in. If you hit one of those, take it home. What about if you hit a turkey?
Yeah, deer, turkey, and bear are all the same car kill hotline. It's like a 608, so like a Madison area code. If you look it up on our website, it's like a 608 number. It'll say like the deer car kill number, but you can call that for turkey and bears as well. Call that number, and you can take it. You basically register it with the DNR staff, and then you can take it for free from the field. You don't need any sort of like authorization tag or permit or anything like that.
And that's I'm glad you brought that up, because a couple weeks ago somebody had sent me a message on Instagram, and I didn't get it right away because I don't check Instagram a whole lot.
Yeah,
I don't have a lot of followers like Bob does.
Follow mine regular.
Yeah. But he said on 2 occasions he's witnessed roadkill black bear with their heads and paws cut off. Explanation for, it sounds like that was probably not the right, because you got to dispose the whole body of that, right?
So when it comes to bears and deer are very similar. You can gut them on the side of the road, but you got to take everything. And then furthermore, if someone's taking the head and the paws, they're probably using it for something, a craft or this or that. But yeah, that would be illegal because they didn't take all of it, and they probably didn't register it appropriately.
No, by taking all of it, you don't mean the innards.
No,
you can get it on the road. Yeah,
that's the only thing you can gut it right there on the side of the road. But we always obviously encourage people, like, if you're out on the side I-94, if you can get the deer in your truck with the guts and then pull off somewhere else, or bring it to your property, then do it just for the safety aspect. Obviously, you want to get them out as soon as possible, but you never know what's going to happen on the side of a freeway.
Yeah, I can imagine somebody trying to gut one on I-94.
Changing a tire on I-94 is tough enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Gutting a deer.
Yep, definitely.
Exactly. So, and then there is some, when it comes to bears, there's a lot of different uses for bear, and some people will, they try to exploit the bear parts, whether it's the gallbladder, the claws, the head, the skull, the teeth, whatever, for different commercial purposes or try to make money on it. So there's actually some rules where if you tan your hide and different things, you're supposed to keep the claws with the hide and everything like that, just because if you're not supposed to, you can't sell them. It's illegal to sell these individual parts.
Oh, okay.
Because it kind of makes an illegal market.
But if it's your bear,
yeah, if it's your bear,
couldn't you do that
yeah,
and make your own like necklaces or something like that?
When
for
it's
yourself?
your own stuff, yeah. But like what you said, if someone finds one with the paws cut off, it's probably not a good situation.
Can't set up at Warren's and sell stuff at Cranfest.
Right.
I did not know that about the sale part over
yeah,
there too. So is that like for deer antlers too, or is it just mostly for like bear?
Most, the safe way is like if you harvest something, you keep it. Don't sell it. There are certain animals during certain times of the year, usually during their open seasons, where you can sell different parts of them. But if you're going to think about doing that, you really want to dive into the regulations or call your local warden.
Right.
Sometimes you need some sort of permit or license to go with that. But for the most part, if it's a wild native animal, you can harvest it legally, but you usually have to keep it to yourself, utilize it in your own way, because when we start allowing that, or when the state starts allowing that, it kind of opens it up for commercialization of the resource, and that's 100% what we don't want, unless there's a commercialized species that we're working.
Right. Speaking of bear, I know, was it maybe a couple weeks ago now, what the city had to move a bear?
Yeah, down in the wells there.
Yeah, because they're probably all out now, but hibernation and coming out too. So.
Hibernation. I think that one they decided to move because it didn't have much, I don't want to say fear like it was attacking people, but I think it was getting a little bit too friendly.
Too comfortable?
Too comfortable, that's a good way to put it. Too comfortable in the neighborhood there. So I think they wanted to get that one out of there before something happened. And obviously last year, maybe we talked about it, but there was that coyote attack on the dog in the wells down there too. So I'm sure the people living in the area are kind of
right,
don't want to deal with that. And understandably, if you got a comfortable bear in your backyard.
Yeah, it ain't Yogi Bear.
No.
But yeah,
they're out. They're out. We've been getting some different complaints of them, coming out of culverts or different things, and people illegally feeding them. And, you can't feed bears. Really can't feed any animals around here. But we've hit that before.
Right.
Bob feeding in his backyard and everything.
He remembered.
I'm just kidding.
I was hoping he'd slide over that. I don't do that anymore.
I know, I'm just kidding.
So keep all you people out of my yard.
But yeah, so they're definitely out. They're definitely out.
Yeah. So I want to revisit, because I had texted you this last week. We had a listener with the fishing with the hooks on there, and I want to revisit that. So I'm gonna bring it up here. But essentially, it was. He had asked, because he's from the south, and talked about for crappie fishing, they can do multiple hooks on a line, and he had asked, can you do that but still have 3 poles?
Yeah.
And I know we kind of touched on it too. It's almost based off the definition. It's like one lure or one hook.
Yeah. No, I'll hit on this. And actually, there was a question with the spring hearings this year that talked about allowing kind of the use of more lines out on, I think it was Lake Michigan or the Great Lakes for a commercial or for a sport trolling situation, and it actually came up at the Eau Claire spring hearing. But so long story short, when anyone goes fishing anywhere in the state of Wisconsin within the state lines, you are allowed 3 hooks, lures, or baits. So everyone generally says, you get 3 lines, which you do if you have 1 hook, lure, or bait per line. But if you decide to put a hook at the bottom of your line, and then a foot up, you tie on another hook, and then a foot up from that, you tie on a third hook. They're 3 separate hooks, but on one line. That's your 3 hooks. So that fits the definition. So at that point, you can't put any more hooks on that. You can't put any more lines or poles in the water or anything, because you have fulfilled your 3 hooks, lines, 3 hooks, baits, or lures, part of the law. Everyone asks, well, a Rapala, it's got multiple treble hooks on it. What does that count as? That's a lure, so that's one. So you could throw 3 different, troll with 3 different Rapalas or something like that. But what we see, and maybe the texter was referencing this, is if you have 3 lines and then you go throw them out on the lake, but on each line you have that setup like talked about where you got 3 different hooks, a foot apart, now you're sitting at 9. So that's way over your 3.
Right.
And we do see that a lot, especially on like the river systems. I learned the hard way as a recruit. I was 1 month into doing this job a decade ago, and I checked a guy down in Madison somewhere. I don't know what lake I was on. And he had three lines out, 3 fishing poles. So I went, checked his license, had a fishing license, good to go. Came back to my field training officer, said, yep, he's got a license. He's got 3 lines out. He's good to go. And my training officer was like, well, did you have him reel up a line? And I was like, no, he's got 3 lines. He's good. He's like, no, the law is hooks, baits, or lures. So I went over, I asked him to reel in a line, and sure enough, he had that setup that I just explained where he had hooks all the way up. I think he even had more than 3. And he was, pan fishing, whatever. But he ended up having like 12 hooks. So he was 9 over his legal limit. So that's the way the law is written, if that makes sense.
How much do you get fined? Do you get fined how many? Do you get fined 9 different times or just one fine?
There actually is like a stepped category. So it's like 1 to 3 hooks, lures, or baits over, and then like 3 or like 4 to 5, and then 6 plus or something like that. There's like 3 different levels where the first level is like 300 some, then 500 some, then 700 some.
Whoa.
It adds up.
Yeah, not worth it to try that.
Boy, I guess not.
And kind of sound like a hard butt talking, saying like writing the tickets on that. If people generally just don't know or are learning or not from the area, we figure that out during the conversation. Like we can tell right away, is this an honest mistake? Did they think the law was this? Did this? Did they think that counted as 1 versus 3 or whatever? We can figure that out pretty quickly versus when we check someone and they're kind of being shady and they're trying to hide this, or they don't want to reel something in, or their lie is really bad. We can tell the intent, and that's when we take enforcement action over education and a warning.
Right. Staying with fishing, somebody had asked this interesting question, but they asked if I catch a fish or somebody catches a fish, but it's out of season, and I still take a photo of it and post it up on social media, is that okay?
Yeah, so that's okay. As long as it's like a reasonable, you took it off your hook, you held it up for a picture, and then you dumped it back in the water right away. Now, if let's just say it's a walleye or a sturgeon, you take that fish and your buddy's up fishing, 100 yards up closer to the dam, and you grab that fish and you walk way up to the dam, and it takes you 10 minutes to get a picture, and that fish has been out of the water now 10 minutes, and technically, if you don't immediate release it, it's considered part of your possession, and at that point you're in violation. But we do allow that little grace period of take a picture, put it back in the water. Around here, sturgeon is what we see that with, because there's no open season besides September. So when people incidentally catch sturgeon, they typically take a picture and dump it back in, and that's okay. But now, if you take too much time lollygagging with it, or if you're dropping it because it's heavy or fighting, and you drop it on its head, that doesn't look good if people are watching. And it's not good for the species. Right.
Or even trying to hold on to it, tie it up until your buddy comes and sees it. Oh, yeah,
especially if you throw it on a stringer or put it in like a little pool of rocks, that's going to be in your possession. And at that point, you're in violation.
Right. Because you could be going out there fishing for walleye, and you can't help it if something else.
Oh, yeah. Incidental catches. That's the name of the game of fishing, right? You never know what's coming up. You think you got a bass, but then you come up with a catfish. You just never know. So incidental catches happens. It's fine. It's just that they're supposed to be immediately released. Same with trout. So, I think we talked about trout at the Eau Claire Rod and Gun Park. If you're fishing trout, and I just had a buddy do this, actually. He was down on the Mississippi fishing, and they reeled in like a 23-inch brown trout. And they're like, I was surprised to see it too. I was like, holy cow, in the middle of the Mississippi. But he's like, well, can I keep it? I'm like, well, do you have a trout license? The season's not open anyways. But I was like, if you don't have a trout stamp, you can't keep it. It's an incidental catch. You got to release it. So I always encourage everyone to get the patron's license if they can afford it. It's pretty cheap, and it covers you for every stamp, everything, fishing license, season. So if you catch something incidental, but it's in season and it's a legal size fish, then you can keep it if you want.
I didn't know you were giving me a look if you had a question. Sorry about
I do, but not on fishing.
Oh,
I want to wait you to wrap up your fishing.
Go for it. Go for it.
Well, Jake, we talked probably a couple of weeks ago maybe about this elk situation.
Yeah.
May 31st, the deadline, and the Black River Falls herd is going to be included this year. And I know those regulations come out of Madison, but did you find out any more of, is it going to be equal opportunity? I mean, shoot 5 in Clam Lake, 5 out of the Black River herd, or how that breaks down and how many licenses might be available?
I did my due diligence per our last call and made some calls on it, but unfortunately, I don't think they actually have that information yet, or if they do, it hasn't been officially approved and shared yet. So I just know where the zone is, the hunting zone, which is like it's all within Jackson County. The whole unit, the whole potential expanded hunting unit kind of goes around and hits different parts of Monroe and Juneau. The hunting portion of it's going to be center of the Jackson County Forest and stuff like that. But as far as the numbers, if they're sharing tags, if they're adding tags, there's no official word on that yet.
Is there going to be such a situation, if you get a license, you got to tell them whether you're going to hunt in the Black River herd or the Clam Lake herd, or can you?
Yeah, so I talked to someone
one?
that applied for them, and they said that when you apply for your not preference point, but when you apply for the tag, they make you choose between the Clam Lake herd or the Jackson County herd, and you can't choose both.
And you don't know how many elk rather might be eligible for the hunt.
So it could be more up north and down south, or they could make a total of 15 or whatever number and split it. I don't know yet, but I do know they made you pick between hunting in the north or the south. So I assume if you are lucky enough to get it, no matter what the numbers are, based off your application, they'll make you hunt in that unit.
How long is that opportunity? If you get a license, I mean, is it like the 9-day deer season, or is it just a one weekend opportunity? How does this work?
It's longer. Again, I think they're still hidden on that, but I think it's about a month long.
Oh, wow.
So it's a longer season. It's kind of like a late archery season, but I think they take a break basically during the 9-day gun deer season. I think it starts before that, and then there's some time in December.
Okay.
And this is just like deer season. No dogs, no baiting, no anything like that.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be a pretty regulated stuff. They should have to go. So I would assume anyone hunting in Jackson is going to do what they have to do up north, which is they have to go through a kind of a learning class, or I don't want to say learn to hunt elk, but I think they go through the biology, the regulations, everything like that with the biologists. And then they have to do that prior to actually going out hunting.
Do they allow with these tags, are these either sex? You can take anything you want?
No, it's going to just be for bulls.
Just be for bulls. Okay.
Yep.
Texter had asked, this sounds good actually, they just had a smelt fry. Do they need a permit to go fishing for smelt? Do you know?
Fishing license. And season being open and this and that. But so there's nothing special for smelt. It's just you got to do it, follow the regulations on the season, stuff like that.
Smelt feed tonight up in Chippewa.
Is that what it is tonight? That's what I thought one was coming up.
on at Pump House Road tonight.
Yep. I had a buddy Snapchat me last night. A friend dumped off a bunch of smelt, so he was cutting the head off and get them going last night.
Nice.
How do they catch those things? Because you got to have a million of them to have a feed.
Exactly.
What do you do? Do you have a net? How do you do that?
Yeah, so they have I think it's seine nets. I haven't worked it or done it personally, but I believe it's seine nets, and they basically walk into the water up there and walk out and got a bunch of smelt in the net, and they just start filling up buckets and bringing it back. And I know it is a community thing. I know a lot of people do it. Obviously, they keep their own for their own fries, but then they share it with people and share the love.
Yeah, a lot of fire departments do that too.
Yeah, a lot of people do that.
Somebody also had texted in and said, I know you guys talked about this a while ago, but could you perhaps kind of go over the Eau Claire walleye fishing regs again?
Yeah.
Because I know it's kind of different for every area for walleye, isn't it?
It kind of is, unfortunately. We're at that spot everywhere, there's always spots around the state where the regulations have to change, right? Like everything can't be the same just based off geography or dams or whatnot. And Eau Claire is one of those intermediate spots. So basically, starting from the downstream up, so from the Mississippi River up to the Dells Dam in Eau Claire and to the Altoona Dam, the walleye regulation is going to be the general inland state regulation. So that's 3 fish now at 15 inches. So that's the general. So just think of it as anything south or downstream of the dams, general inland regulation. Now, if you stay on the Eau Claire River side of it, so you're going from the Altoona Dam all the way, through Lake Altoona, through the Eau Claire River, Lake Eau Claire, all the way out to Clark County, that is going to be the ceded territory. So ceded territory is a big part of the northern part of the state here. It's 3 fish you can keep, 3 walleyes. You can keep all 3 of them from 15 to 20 inches, or you can keep 2 of them from 15 to 20, 1 over 24 inches. So 3 fish in the ceded territory, with 1 of them you could keep over 24. So can't keep any fish from 20 to 24. And then instead of going to Eau Claire, if you stay on the Chippewa River side of it, so you go from the Eau Claire Dam all the way up through Chippewa County up into Rusk County. They did just change those regulations too this year.
Okay.
So now you can keep them from 13 to 16 inches. 3 fish you can keep from 13 to 16. And then you can keep 1 fish over 24. So it's similar to the ceded territory rules, except for instead of like a 15 to 20 on the Eau Claire River, it's 13 to 16. You can keep it, can't keep anything between 16 and 24, and you can keep 1 over 24. And it's all in the regs. I recited that from memory, but I got them open here, so I know they're in the regs here, and it has it laid out really good, like where it starts from, where it goes to, and what the length is. So if all those words I just threw out there got confusing, I really just encourage you to get the new regs or go to our website and download or open the fishing regs, and you can read right through it.
Another texter asked too, and I think we've talked about this in the past, but it might be a good kind of catch up with the opener coming up here. Which state license do you need if you're fishing the Mississippi?
You need the state of your residency.
Okay.
So if you're a Wisconsin resident, even if you're fishing the Minnesota side of the Mississippi, you'd have to have a state of Wisconsin fishing license.
Okay.
Obviously, if you're going to go fish in Minnesota, you got to have your Minnesota one. If you go outside the railroad tracks down there, all those regulations down there are based off the 2 railroad tracks on each side of the river. So that's as far as those Mississippi regulations go, which is at some place it seems like 10 feet from the side of the river. But yeah, you got to have your own residency, your own state resident license.
So it would follow your own state regulations then too when you're fishing on there, or does that get a little tricky?
No, down there you have to know what side. It's not even what side of the river. You have to know what state you're in wherever you're fishing.
Okay. And
it's not like, it doesn't necessarily mean just because you put in on the Wisconsin side, the first half is Wisconsin, the second half is Minnesota. It's wherever the state line was back in, 1800, whatever, when the states formed. So there is like an actual map out there. What I encourage everyone to do, and what I do personally when I'm fishing the Mississippi, is I just fish like the lesser amount. So like in Minnesota, you can only fish 2 lines from a boat, not 3 like in Wisconsin. Okay. So even if I don't know where I'm at, I'm typically only fishing 2. Generally, I only fish 1 because it's a lot going on at once. But
right.
I never really go over whatever the bigger end is just to be safe. Because it's hard to tell. It's really hard to tell if you're in Minnesota or Wisconsin. You might think you're in Wisconsin because there's all this water, but you could be in Minnesota and vice versa. Sometimes the state line is a lot closer to the other state than you would think.
Yeah, especially, I know some people probably have GPS or something that they're using over there.
Yeah,
but
there's probably different programs. I've always just gone based off whatever like the lesser amount is. So like 2 poles instead of 3. Or the fishing rigs, for the most part, are the same no matter where you're at. There's some differences up in St. Croix, I think, or like some refuge issues because of just the way the laws went into effect this year. But for the most part, the 2 states and Wisconsin and Iowa work really well to try to have a similar bag limit, similar everything, so that there's no question on what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Did you have one, Bob?
Oh, just checking my social media. I'm always on social media, you know.
He's got his gram up.
He's got his, and TikTok probably.
No, man, I just got to post a Facebook picture. My nephew just got a tom turkey this morning.
There we go.
Did he really?
Yep.
5 p.m. tomorrow night. Get it registered
right over there.
Yeah,
I figured that'd be a question that might come in.
He's down in southern Wisconsin. He's out of your jurisdiction. He's down,
good for him. No, that's really exciting.
Got his tom turkey this morning.
So is it, with that though, is it same as deer timeline for registration?
Yep. Deer, bear, turkey, 5 p.m. day after the harvest. So So today is what, Thursday? So anyone that gets a turkey this morning, congrats. Just make sure you get it registered by 5 p.m. tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Now we've talked about. This might be a stupid question. I know we've talked about like hunting deer in the city. Is hunting turkey in a city a thing? Have you heard? I know it's like a city regulation sort of thing, but have you heard people like hunting turkey in the city?
Yeah, it all falls under the same thing as like bow hunting.
Okay.
So like they allow bow hunting, and obviously when you think bow hunting, you think deer, but
right.
And the main reason for that is obviously they got discharge ordinances for firearms within the city limits. But there is, I don't know what year this came into effect, but there's a state act that says that, or a state law that says that municipalities have to allow hunting within their limits, as long as it's safe. So that's where you can use the firearm seasons as reasons to say, well, that's not safe in a municipality. But with bow hunting, that's different. So the city of Eau Claire has like a ordinance against bow fishing on half moon.
Okay. Where
you cannot do it. And I think that makes sense because it's a very popular urban park and area. But otherwise, if you're doing bow hunting activities, whatever that may be within most cities, you're going to be good to go. Mm-hmm. And I've got calls on that. There are definitely people that have tried or have taken turkeys within the city with their bow, for sure.
Have they ever taken, and I don't know if they can, deer one thing, but have they ever taken population counts on turkeys for an estimate of how many turkeys we've got? Because they've flourished since they've been reintroduced, really, a few years ago.
Yeah, they definitely do like brood surveys and different things. I'm sure they have. Well, they definitely have to have a number. And I apologize. Maybe next time I'll call the wildlife officer or wildlife biologist before this and get some of that info. I know they have numbers because that's how we base our tags on. The number of harvest authorizations per zone is based off the number of animals or turkeys they believe live in that area, as well as the number of hunters they think are going to put in for it. So they make a quota per se on the number they're going to allow. So they have to have some sort of number. I just don't know exactly. I think they take in like citizens' observations, their observations, brood surveys, and then really importantly, is the harvest data. So like some people, complain about online registration, in-person registration, this, that, 5 p.m. the day after, whatever it is. At the end of the day, all those numbers, the reason we want them in is because that's how the biologists determine how many animals are out there. So if half the state isn't turning in the number of animals they're harvesting, then we're going to have a miscount on the numbers.
Right.
So they don't just go to the local taverns and say, what do you think about turkey numbers?
Yeah.
Somebody texted, and I'm glad you guys brought up Half Moon. I'm having a debate with my buddy. Is motors of any kind allowed with a boat on Half Moon Lake?
Yeah, so this is all city ordinance stuff. So the state has I got no jurisdiction on the motor stuff here. I know it because I run into it all the time. Yeah. But I can't enforce any of it because it's an ordinance, city ordinance they created. But long story short, the rules on Half Moon Lake is that you can use electric motors throughout 90% of the lake. Bronze Bay, which if you don't know where it is, you'll find it when you go down there. Bronze Bay doesn't allow anything in it. I don't know how you can really get anything in there. It's pretty shallow and weedy. But the lake does allow electric. I think the sign down there, the ordinance reads something about no internal combustion engine, so no motor engines.
It's like trolling motors you can have on there.
Trolling motors you can. So what I do see quite oftenly is like a nice size fishing boat out there. They got the troller motor running. That's how they're transporting around. And they got their big 200 horse engine up in the air. Totally fine. The law doesn't say you can't have the motor out there, the internal combustion, you just can't use it. So electric stuff, good to go. Paddling, good to go. Engines, no. You can have them out there, just don't turn them on.
When it comes to ordinance like that, is that up to townships and cities for lakes like that, or is it just because it's unique, it's in the city, so it's a city ordinance?
It's all because it's like the city. So the city probably was getting complaints of whatever back in the day, maybe tubers, maybe people going too fast with all like the paddle boats and kayaks and canoes out there, and probably made a city ordinance to restrict it for safety reasons and this and that. So that's all well within the right of different cities. I mean, you see it across the state with different wake rules and different no wakes until 10 p.m. or 10 a.m. or this or that.
Yep.
So here they made the no motorboats, and then I would assume again the no bull fishing for the safety element of
right.
it. Sorry. I just want to hit on it quick. If you do see that, or you have thoughts, or you want to report it when you see it, I get a lot of calls, which is fine because I'll transfer it to Eau Claire PD. But to save a middleman step, if you do see that, you want to report it, that's great. Just call the Eau Claire Police Department non-emergency line or whatever. Call the Sheriff's Department, call Eau Claire PD, because they're the only ones that can enforce it.
Gotcha.
I can't.
Somebody had texted in, do I need a license or a permit to go collect mushrooms?
No.
Okay.
Not yet. I'm
Not
kidding.
Yet.
The DNR regulates everything. It's always the joke. No, so mushrooms, there's no state laws that have any sort of authority over the amount of harvesting or this or that. Obviously with mushrooms, you just want to be safe, know what you're harvesting. The big thing we see with like mushrooms or different wildflowers or this or that is, one, you can't trespass, for any reason.
Right.
So we do see people that want morels, and they, maybe they can't find, I'm air quoting for people not in studio, can't find where the property lines are, and they start going onto neighbors' land. So you got to stay on property or public property where you have permission. And then the other thing is that on certain state lands, though, throughout the state, especially like state natural areas, there are rules on like collecting different wildflower seeds, taking whole plants from the ground, different things like that they don't allow you to harvest stuff like that. So if you do go out because you want to gather stuff or collect stuff, forage, definitely like Google whatever that state property is, or if the county forest system allows it, because there are some rules on doing that. I'm taking different wild plants and different things like that. But mushrooms, those aren't. You can take mushroom.
Another texter with a question. Jake, I don't know if this would be your jurisdiction or not, but kind of a random question. If there's an island in the middle of a lake that I can't find any ownership on, is it legal to camp there?
Depends. So this one's a little tough because it's such a unique situation. So when it comes to like water and land and stuff below the ordinary high water mark, so the ordinary high water mark is a wetland delineation can figure it out, or different things can figure out what the ordinary high water mark is. We have staff that are trained to do that, but it's basically where like every year when it floods, it goes to that level and usually not too much further. And you can usually tell because of the different plants that start above the ordinary high water mark. But long story short, when you look at different Onyx maps or GIS mapping systems and different stuff like that, if it shows that someone owns the bed of the river, the bed of the lake, something like that, then they're going to own that island or whatnot, or whatever piece of land. No one can own the water, so you can always be on top of the water. You can always have your feet wet. There are plenty of instances, like especially here on the Chippewa River, where there's tons of sandbars and even islands that have formed over the years because of water levels that were historically under the ordinary high water mark, so no one ever owned them, and they're just kind of deemed public property. Doesn't mean you have the right to go in there and cut down trees and set up a homestead or anything like that, but it does allow you to camp or recreate or have lunch or do whatever on some of those properties. So if you have an island on a lake and you can't find any property ownership of, there's potential that it's just not owned by anyone. It could be part of the ordinary high water mark. But you really want to make sure you kind of check all the different county GIS maps or talk to the county and find out if anyone lives there, if it's part of public property, or what the case is with it. Mm-hmm. It's hard to speak on each one individually because there's so much of it throughout the state.
Right, yeah. I mean, I think it was a few months ago I saw somebody, it was like on a realtor site, they were actually selling an island. I'm like, well, that'd be cool.
That would be pretty cool.
That would be, right, but...
Yeah, and there's a lot of cool, like, especially on the Chippewa, there's, like, in Dunn County, they got some big public islands out there that anyone can canoe down, stop, and go hunt and this or that, or, you can't camp in the county there, but there's different ones where you can camp and stuff like that. It's pretty common. So,
have you ever? So as you just mentioned, I just random question on the top of my head now. Like especially when I go down to the Dells or something like that, you see all these tree stands that are not far off the highway, right? Have you ever run into a situation where somebody's like had to track across the highway? You know what I mean? Like
they shoot a deer. And, they're looking at a sign in the middle of I-94.
Yeah, right.
No, I haven't seen that.
I hope not.
I mean, because there's some of them are that close.
I don't care whether you're dressed in orange or not. That's not smart.
Right.
No, 50 feet. I mean, 50 feet isn't that far. So 50 feet from the center line of a roadway is the hunting law. So a lot of those stands are illegal. I assume they're probably hunting inland, and that's where the deer are running. I haven't seen that. I haven't heard that. I've never gotten any complaints, but I wouldn't be surprised if...
Like, I'd be afraid to bow hunt just in case, it's something like...
or you shoot a nice buck and then a semi takes it out. You know?
Yeah.
I'd like to get an old stand sometime in the middle of the night, get on the interstate when there's nobody around and put it in the median and see how long it takes for the cops or the DNR would come and go crazy.
That's probably... I've thought about that, though, because there are some parts... Like, hypothetical, like you said, there's some parts on 994 where there's big woods in the middle, and it's more than 50 feet, and this and that, and I'm like... I mean, there's animals in there. There might be sheds in there, but, a lot of times those are owned by DOT and they're not allowed to go on or this or that. Plus, it's just dangerous. Like, you don't really want to be messing around with anything near I-94. Mm-hmm. I mean, you see it with troopers and other sheriff's deputies and cops around the country that, just a simple traffic stop, they end up losing their life because of that, let alone if we're all monkeying around by the side of the road looking for morels and deer sign,
Right. Yep,
so
exactly.
I know State Patrol will kick you off the highway pretty quick if you're messing around there.
and
rightly
as
so.
They should.
Well, Jake, I know we've kept you really long here, but before we let you go, do you have any, I know fishing's not for another couple of weeks here or so for the opener, but turkey's going on and a lot of other stuff. Anything else that you kind of want to, as a reminder?
Yeah, I could hit on some fire stuff if you got a minute real quick.
Definitely.
I reached out to one of the local foresters, Jed, out of Augusta, a real decent dude. Worked with him a long time here. Just to kind of check in with what the conditions are. Obviously, we've had a lot of rain recently, and that's kind of dampened everything, which is good, and we needed it. But I just checked in to see how it's been going. I'm part of like a incident management team where we get alerted. We're like, okay, it's red flag. It's going to be a hot day. It's going to be windy. There's going to be fire conditions, so we're kind of put on call. So I checked in with him, and he said, this weather has helped, but it's been a really dry spring, as we've already talked about, as we know, without the precipitation, without the snow. So the most common things they're seeing this spring, are holdover fires. So like you have a campfire, you burn a little brush, you think it's put out, you leave, and then that night or the next day the wind kicks up the embers or the ash and restarts it. Earlier this week they had I think he said there was about 20-ish just in like the Trempealeau, Clare area, wildfires going on. And then part of the team I'm on like Sunday night, there was like 34 in the state at the moment.
Wow. That
were going on from this whole region, and a lot of, DNR foresters, local, and then volunteer firefighters are out fighting these all the time. So their advice, my advice, all of our advice is if you do have, campfires, which you can still have like warming fires or cooking fires, stuff like that, unless there's a statewide ban on stuff or like an emergency ban wherever you're at. If you have some sort of fire, make sure that it's like out. You take a shovel and it's cold to the touch, everything like that, because that's what's starting a lot of these little wildfires right now. The volunteer fire departments are doing a lot of good work. They're really, there's only so much staff out there, so they're doing a lot of work trying to help, save people's lives and property. And then, like I kind of mentioned, there's a lot more wildfires than you'd think. Like, you don't hear about every single one on the news unless it's a big one, right?
Right.
But there's dozens of them going on at any given time, if not, more than on a certain day. So just because you don't hear them doesn't mean they're not happening. So that's why everyone preaches wildfire safety, because they're happening for sure.
Yeah, when you see that map and you see all those little fire symbols there, it's like, holy crap, there's a lot going on.
And there's technology out there, because I've talked to some of the local township fire department. They got drones.
Oh, yeah.
And they can go right to the source. You say, well, I don't know how it happened. Well, you should, because it's right here in
yeah,
your burn
that burn barrel
This
back
is
there?
where it started, right here. And they charge you, don't they, for coming out and putting that fire out?
Oh yeah, there's a lot
it's
of
not free.
There's a lot of liability if this is you're at fault, or you're burning when you shouldn't, or you don't have the correct permits and you're not following the permits and stuff like that. I've seen plenty of tickets being written by both the foresters and the warden staff in the area for people burning when they can't be burning and stuff like that. So, with all that being said, just really if you get that alert on your phone that says, low humidity, high fire danger, high winds, just wait to burn, wait to have that campfire, have s'mores with your kids off the stove or something like that instead of making a campfire. And then just, be respectful of all the work and time that it goes in for like the forestry staff, the fire departments, and everyone that's got, law enforcement that's got to respond and help with all of those. So the burning season or fire season usually goes through like the beginning of June, Memorial Day, a little bit longer up north. So that's kind of like their busy time is through the beginning of June. So, that's still a couple months. So just be cognizant if you're going to start any sort of fires.
Absolutely. Really quick, last second one that came in here. Any rules or laws regarding magnet fishing?
No.
All right.
We don't necessarily...
what is it?
You throw a magnet in the water and you try to reel in something that's metal.
Yeah, super popular, especially on YouTube.
Yep. People find guns or bikes or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of guns found. What we tell people is, if you're going to do it, it's just like morel or mushroom hunting or shed hunting, is make sure you're somewhere where you can legally do it. If there's a sign on the bridge that says no pedestrians or whatnot, don't go on that bridge, obviously. If you find something notable, a bike, a gun, a safe, obviously call local law enforcement and stuff like that. And if you have, law enforcement coming up to you, especially non-wardens, because most wardens have heard of this because it's got fishing in the title,
Right.
But I think a lot of local law enforcement in different areas of the state probably haven't seen it, so they don't know what a guy's doing, throwing
this big magnet with a big rope in there.
So just I'd be respectful, because someone from the public is going to call it in. There's no doubt about it. Someone's going to see you throwing stuff in the river, and they're going to call it in. So I would just say, just be respectful to whoever shows up to kind of just figure out what's going on. And if you pull stuff out of the river, I will say I do have authority on, if you leave it on the side of the road, or you throw it back in the woods, or even if you throw it back in the river, technically once you take possession of it, that's yours. So it's your litter if you throw it back in the river. So if you pull out something, you're like, oh, I don't want that, you throw it back in, well, now you just littered. So,
I don't want that clothes hanger.
Yeah, exactly. So you gotta, if you plan on pulling stuff out of the river, you gotta plan on taking it to the garbage somewhere.
Have you heard of any interesting, cool stuff around here from anybody? I see in the YouTube ones too, and I'm like, that's some crazy stuff.
Nothing. I don't know, I guess I say crazy or something you see on the national news, but a lot of guns, actually.
That's where
old guns. Is that
because then you just
wonder
common
just to throw them off the bridge if you're in trouble.
Yeah, that's you just kind of wonder okay, what happened with this? That's
well, I was talking to a retired
me.
warden. His son was doing it somewhere in Clark County, and they pulled up a gun, and
really,
they're like, oh. He's like, we just called the sheriff's department. It was rusted, it was deteriorated, but. A lot of guns.
Yeah, that's makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Right.
Holy
100%.
moly. Jake, we appreciate every Thursday you're on, but the extended portion here today, too.
No, I love coming in and doing this. It's fun. A lot of good questions from the listeners and stuff.
You forgot the pies, though, Bob. I'm just saying. Remember last time?
I was looking for those. Yeah. But,
I had them here yesterday. I got my days mixed up.
Oh, yeah. Or what was that other one? Strawberry wine?
Oh, yeah. Remember the
still
dandelion wine? I don't know if that's still good or not.
Well, give it to Jake and we'll find out.
Yeah, right. Dude, appreciate it as always, man. And be safe out there.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
You got it.